Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds by nerds, I'm Nerdarchist Dave. Today I am joined by Jerry Joe Seltzer. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. As always, folks, in the description you can find all the links to find Jerry around the interwebs and check them out. If you want to kind of introduce yourself and let people kind of know what you do, give them the elevator pitch if you would.
Well, I'm an artist and an author, and I just do creative things that I enjoy, and I love D&D. I've been playing since first edition, though fifth edition is definitely my favorite. And so this is my third project called Unfamiliar, Release the Tiny Beasts, where the concept is that familiars can now be liberated. There's a new spell making its way around the wizarding circles that lets you give freedom to your familiar, letting them go off into the world if they want to, and become characters of their own, talking, advancing in levels just like any other adventurer.
I think we've talked about in the past the premise of an idea for like an adventure where it's like you're all familiars to the wizard, to different wizards, and for whatever reason you've been thrust together and have to do a quest. So like this would be the ideal product for that premise.
Oh yeah, definitely,
Uh,
definitely.
and so where did you come up with the idea that uh, familiars are awesome in D&D? How about if we could play them as the characters in the game?
Well, I'm one of those players that likes to play I play like the little cute halfling or the gnome, or like I think once someone's ranger died and we're like, what do we do with his wolf? I'm like, I'll be the wolf. So I like playing those quirky little things. But I really think what happened was I was drawing realistic kind of animal, like not anthropomorphic, not cartoon animals, but
Mhm.
more realistic looking animals, and putting them in this like medieval garb. And I had made a bunch of them and I put them into my Facebook group where I have like thousands of DMs there with me. And I'm thinking I want to do something with these. I just kept posting them and they're like, we love these. These are great. You should definitely do something. And I don't know, I proposed a couple ideas and I was like, yeah. And then I just like, yeah, well, maybe nothing. And then suddenly, I don't remember how, but sometime I got this idea like, what if they're not familiars? What if they used to be familiars, but somehow they're free and they can talk because familiars can't normally talk, and they could, advance in levels. They're not tied to that wizard anymore. And everyone seemed to like that idea. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. So started from there.
You're also so in this project. You're also doing the art. You're writing it. You're doing the layout and design. So kind
Yeah,
of like soup to nuts. That's a lot of work.
it is. Yeah, I'm kind of a singer songwriter, but you know what? I'm a damn good artist. I'm a damn good writer, and I'm a damn good graphic designer. However, those are my only skills in life. So you know what? Hey, if you can take the few things that you're good at and combine them, who knows? You could do some amazing stuff.
So how long will it take you to do a project like this?
I've been working on this one for about a year and a half.
Okay.
So in the beginning, I was just doing the art and letting the ideas sort of percolate. So I had accumulated a lot of art before the idea for what it was going to turn into really crystallized. And then when the idea came, then I started putting together the Kickstarter, and I spent months doing that and getting feedback from other people, and still the ideas slowly coalescing until finally it solidified and I was ready to go ahead and launch it.
So you also have a bunch of other books on Amazon. So you've published things before, and this isn't your first Kickstarter. So you've kind of have a proven record of being able to do it. Because I feel like that would be one of the things that people might be concerned with when they see a Kickstarter, and they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, one person is doing all the work." But on the plus side, you've already done it and proven that you can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And COVID didn't kill me, so
That's a
yeah,
plus.
yeah, I'm still going. Yeah, I do have a bit of a following. So I was working with TSR back in the old days, doing mostly art, but some writing for Dragon Magazine, and I've just been around for a long time working on children's books, doing other kinds of books, illustrating for other authors, writing and hiring illustrators to do other books. So I know this industry inside and out, which is one reason why, if you look at the Kickstarter for Unfamiliar, you won't see miniatures and this and that. That's not my specialty. I don't know that stuff, and I don't want to hire someone that figures all that out. I know how to make books, really good books. And so that's what I do.
There's nothing wrong with sticking to what you know.
Yeah. Core
So,
competencies.
how much gaming are you able to get in? It seems like you got a lot on your plate.
I play twice a week. Monday nights, I play with the same crew I went to college with 25 years ago.
Nice.
And we play virtually because we don't all live in the same city anymore. And Saturdays, I go over to a friend's house. I got a bunch of friends from church, all church guys, and we have a great time playing. So I have a live game and I have a virtual game. So
that's quite a difference from probably when you started gaming to now having a church group. Which I always find it funny when someone's like, he's like, "Oh, we play at our church," or I play with people from church.
yeah, that's a good point. Things have really changed. In fact, in the beginning, it was almost like something I did in secret, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until our church, this was quite a while ago, when Lord of the Rings came out, the church kept using snippets from Lord of the Rings as a way of illustrating sermons. Once that happened, everyone sort of came out of the closet.
Yeah.
I remember saying, well, this is kind of what inspired Dungeons and Dragons. And like, oh, hey, did you play? Me too.
That's funny.
And before you know it, like, oh, everyone's been playing D&D this whole time, and everyone's been just afraid to talk about it for fear of being accused of, being devil worshippers or something.
The first rule of D&D is we don't talk about D&D. Or maybe that's Fight Club. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, for many years that we, most of our group would play D&D on the down low, and then like there are certain people that are super open about it, and the rest of us are like, no. And then like it'd be really weird, like when those of us that would kind of keep that part of our life compartmentalized were out with those people, and they would want to talk D&D in public.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, man, you need to stop, or you're gonna get beat down right here.
Yeah.
Things have come a long way since those days.
Oh yeah. Especially since 5th edition, things have completely changed. 4th edition was confusing and pretty inaccessible, despite trying to make it accessible to the video game crowd. But
yeah.
5th edition, I think, opened it back up in a way that I've never seen. So now it's like I think I know more people that play D&D than don't play D&D.
I mostly choose to not associate with people that don't play D&D. I find them completely and utterly unrelatable.
Well, my wife doesn't play. I can't get her to play.
Yeah. Well, there's always that. Well, to be honest with you, though, My wife just started playing like within the last couple of years, and we've been together. I don't know. We've been together since '93. We got married in like '98. So
Wow.
I don't know. People
And
change. I've also heard of people getting started playing in their 70s. So there's always hope.
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I remember when I first heard about Dungeons and Dragons, I was in college, studying art, and I had this buddy who was telling me about it. Now I had never seen it, never knew anything about it. I had heard the words, that's about it. And he's like, yeah, yeah. He's like, oh, let me tell you, last weekend, me and my buddies, we went into this room and it was filled with frost giants. And I turned the floor into mud. The giants dropped into it. And then I turned it back into stone. And I was like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't I don't understand. Like, where did this happen?
Was it like a
Where,
board game? Yeah,
yeah, I'm
it's
like,
like
I was completely blown away that this narrative could have taken place anywhere. Even, like, you could have, I understand, like, you could have your own imagination, but to have someone share your imagination just blew me away.
and to not be a child.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
right. Because like
yeah,
essentially like role playing games, D&D, and what we do is just like what we've always did. But at some point, you're told you shouldn't do that anymore, and we
yeah,
stop.
yeah.
So
Well, because you know what? It doesn't work. Like, you remember playing and doing all these things, but if you watch kids doing pretend, it doesn't work because they need rules and they need some dice, because they're like, I shot you. No, you didn't. No, I shot you.
yeah.
Well,
Honestly, it's
I
not that much
have
different
I
than
have
some
a
of the
magic
gaming
shield that
tables.
protects me from that.
It's not
Like,
that different
well,
for
where'd
some of
you
the
get
gaming
that
tables I've been
from?
at. Yeah,
Yeah, that's why
for
you
sure.
need rules. So D&D is just playing pretend with rules.
So really, you just watch those kids, and you can figure out which ones are going to be the rules lawyers, and which ones aren't. It
Yeah, I
was
don't know.
it was always
You can
there.
tell who's going to be a leader because they're the ones that keep inventing new rules every time that they start losing.
Yeah, leader, cheater, whatever as the case may
Yeah,
be. I mean, I'm sure you've played with all different types at this point. As have I.
I think I've been all types of players at this point.
That's fair enough too.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a rules lawyer. Sometimes I still can be, just because, like, I don't know why, but it just, and it's not, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just like, know your own spell. How about
Yeah.
that? Just know your own spell. Read it. Know what it says. Don't say like, I don't know, I think it lasts 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, well, it only lasts 1 minute and it's concentration and you just cast Spirit Guardian. So now it's gone. But
Who am I to tell you?
yeah, I mean, do whatever you want. Whatever. We're all just playing pretend, having fun, right?
I mean, that
Hey,
has been
I'm reading
coming
my
up
spells and
since
I'm
the
going
dawn
by
of
the
D&D.
limitations.
This discussion, I feel like we've had. Just know what you need to be able to do.
Yeah.
Uh, so, do you prefer when you're playing in person, theater of the mind, minis, terrain?
Oh. Well, I play both, right? Because I have a virtual game and we play
Yeah,
Theater of the Mind. However, sometimes when things get confusing, we'll bring up a board. We play in Zoom, and we just sort of draw in little initials using annotation as to where our characters are, um, just to help visualize ranges and things like that, or
I,
which
I
enemies are closer to who.
I do the
Um,
same thing. I'll make maps over on Dungeon Fog, and then I just screen share those maps and use the
yeah,
annotations.
yeah. I prefer um, minis, but not Roll 20. Like, it's too cumbersome. I did that earlier on in the pandemic when our game stopped. When the live game stopped, I was like, I don't know. I don't know how long you can go without playing. I can go a few weeks and then I get the itch, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and so I found this group of British guys playing Roll 20, joined in with them, and it was like it was amazing how cool it was, but it wasn't immersive. You know, it definitely was not immersive. It's like,
I
do you want to move your figure over here?
I remember like having one experience where where someone was running through Roll 20 and like most of the group was like younger people and everyone just grabbed their token and just went into a different direction at the same time. And I'm like, oh my god, this is terrible.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I've played Theater of the Mind online. I've played with the different BTTs, and it can be helpful. But for the most part, when we play in person, we do like a mix of Theater of the Mind and terrain and minis,
Mhm.
just for
Yeah,
like.
I think that's the best until we get those holodecks up and running. That's going to be the way to go.
There's a
Is
Kickstarter right now where it's like I don't even know what the product is, to be honest with you, but
I think I know what you're going to say. Yeah,
it's like a
I've
virtual
seen ads for
space,
that.
and like you have virtual people around the virtual table playing, and like you can even do like the first person view from the mini's perspective. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh my god, this is terrible. Like I hate first person shooters and stuff. Like
yeah, me too.
I just end up in the corner stuck, to be honest
Yeah,
with you. And I'm just envisioning my D&D experience like that now. Uh,
yeah, yeah. It's like, oh wait, can somebody please change the permissions so that I can jump off of this flight of stairs? Because right now I'm stuck.
yeah, and I mean, some of it looked really cool. Like the GM could virtually change their avatar. So like instead of being, you role playing being an ogre, you would really just look like an ogre. Um, but
Yeah,
at a certain point, it just is like, okay, are we still playing D&D?
yeah. I don't think it helps.
Yeah.
Um, the human mind can come up with wonderful imaginative things. When I run games, I assume that every one of my players has a slightly different picture in their minds. And I run it and use language that's descriptive enough that all of those little differences should still be fine. I'll use a lot of feeling words like you feel like that the dragonborn guy in the corner could destroy you in a fight.
Yeah.
you know, like I don't need to like describe the weapons or like how tall he is and all these things. You fill in the gaps. Our minds are great at doing that all day long. Just use that. I think that's the more powerful computer. Use the human brain.
Yeah, if when there's too much input, right? Like you said, it takes away the individual's perspective, and like that's part of the fun of the game is where I don't
Mhm.
like. I usually like kind of like layer my descriptions, so like I'll give the like a really generic description at first, and then I kind of want my players to ask me questions,
Mhm.
so that I can give them feedback. Like you're in a tavern and like maybe something happens and now all of a sudden they want to know, well, is there like a chandelier in this tavern? Like okay, so I think they're going to try and do something cool if there is. So okay, there is, right? Like so like I like to give them a little bit of room to like lead me through
Mhm.
the descriptions and then kind of
Yeah,
like zero
I'm
in.
really big on the feeling. So I'd be like, all right, yeah, you enter this tavern that you've never been in. There's a bard who just stopped playing, and it looks like he's restringing his lute. Everyone stops and turns towards you and you feel a little bit out of place, what do you do? So I like to use those kind of descriptions so that I want to tell you how you feel, mostly so that all the players have the same perception of that aspect of it.
Sometimes too, it's just like we're all wired a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're more of a like a touchy feely person, you're more likely to use those descriptions, and then it
Mm-hmm.
connects with other touchy feely people as well.
Yeah.
And then someone else might not be like, and they have a different way of doing it. Like that's also another like cool aspect of the game is, you know, you get these different vantage points of viewpoints depending on who's running. Not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily better or worse, but you know, just different. So like you can play through the same scenarios and you know they're different every time just because you have different people involved with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And definitely players want different things out of the game. And I like to, when I run a game, I'll actually make notes about the players, everything that I know about the players. Like, what are they trying to get out of it? Is this an escape from their daily grind? Are they the type of player who likes to, you know, put on a dress, you know, and like play a woman? Like they always play that female character. Like,
Yeah.
why? What is it that they're trying to get out of that? Are they like, do they just want to seed chaos in, you know, are they like a player versus DM kind of player? Or do they just want to like blow things up and do as much damage as possible? I want to know these things so that I can feed that part of them, because I want everyone to just have a great time, and hopefully that way they get immersed into the story and they will follow the plot.
Yeah, I mean that's a great idea too. Like just trying to, eh, you know, figure out what's going to engage those particular players, right? And I mean, it's a lot. Obviously, that's a lot easier with a group that you've been gaming with for a while. Also, I feel like that's where like a session zero comes in really handy. You know, because if you can take notes on not only just the characters but the players as well. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
you can try and help provide experience that they're looking to get out of the table.
Yeah. I
And
always give the vibe in session zero. Like, I might say, all right, this campaign is going to be like gritty and uh, you know, realistic as I can make it. It's not funny, it's not jokey, there's no puns and things like that. It's going to be like heartbreaking. And maybe another campaign, I'm like, all right, this is going to be sort of lighthearted. I'm going to let you guys steer where the action goes. Um, and it's just going to be fun and full of goofy NPCs.
so, are any of your players or any of them currently playing a familiar?
No, no, but I'm going to loop. They're all going to be play testers.
Whether they like it or
I've
not.
warned them. I've warned them, and they're well aware of the project and everything.
Yeah.
So they know it's coming.
What is one of the more interesting or unexpected directions that the Familiars project has taken for you so far?
Well, there's interesting challenges to it, right? Because it's not just okay. Well, instead of an elf, you're a ferret, right?
Uh,
Yeah, it's not quite that easy. For one thing, there's the size issue. So familiars are all tiny beasts, whereas D&D characters don't get any smaller than small, right? All characters in D&D are either small or medium. And so tiny has different rules, right? So you have to think they're going to do a lot less damage with those weapons. I
yeah.
mean, these are tiny little weapons. Not only that, they have the stats, they have the physical traits of an animal. And those are pretty well established. You know, you're not going to have like a 14 strength as a rabbit. All right. You have your strength is probably like 4 or something. And you still roll those, but we're rolling D4s, and, you know, you're designed to be around the average for that race, for a rabbit, so maybe your strength is 3 or 4, so that means, well, maybe you have to use a dex based weapon. You're not going to be using strength. Not only that, but you have rabbit's paws. How are you going to grab a sword? So, there's lots of different things. So I've actually had to create classes.
Uh,
You can't just like be a barbarian. No, I made it. There's a class called a shifter, which is similar to a barbarian, but it's created with, these little familiar guys in mind. So it works. So the things that wouldn't work rules wise for barbarian do work in this instance.
so, is there a decent sized section for running a game for familiars?
Um, like as far as like what's different?
Yeah, what's different? GM advice, how you might
Yeah,
treat, putting together this adventure for these characters opposed to your standard D&D.
it's just a couple pages, just to point out, just to make the DM aware of how to deal with certain rules complications that might arise, um, how to apply their own judgment for these things, how players might try to abuse certain rules aspects, because I don't
No,
want that to
never.
happen. Yeah, yeah. So how to deal with those things, but it's not it's still D&D. These
Yeah.
characters should be able to play side by side with other characters. So if you just had one unfamiliar in your group, they should go toe to toe. They should work just fine.
I'm picturing that, like the one familiar in the group and like always being mistaken for a pet or a familiar, and
Yeah.
the attitude that's going to come from the familiar.
So yeah, so address that too. So that's going to depend on the DM. So
Yeah.
like, are you like the first guy that these people will ever seen? For one thing, these familiars, they're wearing clothes. I figure they're probably self-conscious about being confused with an animal, and they have gear and stuff, right? So they
Yeah.
so they they wear clothes, they wear armor, they wear
I don't think
things
it's going
that
to help. Oh,
certainly
that's
set them
so
apart.
cute. You dressed him up like the warrior.
Yeah, yeah, there is
it,
that too.
Instantly, the party are all like dog moms and dads now.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's great for role players. Um, I think if you're a hack and slasher, probably unfamiliar, not for you. I could be wrong. We're probably going to hit the 1,000 backer mark, which is a stretch goal. So we're going to introduce dogs. That was a big surprise to everybody. I think so many people were assuming that dogs were familiars.
Oh, and they're
You know,
not.
I
Yeah.
can tell you how many people are like, "What do you mean it's not in there?" I'm like, "Just read the spell. There's no dogs."
They're too big.
Yeah, they are. So we're gonna have dogs, which means there's gonna be small and medium. There's gonna be tiny, small, and medium. That's gonna be like the sub races of dog.
Okay.
So there is going to be medium-sized war dogs, So you want to play a big mastiff, you can. Um, you're not going to have all the other benefits that are being used to balance out the other creatures, though. So maybe someone wants to be a war dog, but still, I don't think. I just play a barbarian if that's what you want to do.
But I want to be a barbarian war
Yeah,
dog.
yeah, you could.
So, I guess the interesting thing is having to deal with, like you said, not having opposable thumbs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need to think about that. It's not like Veggie Tales where all of a sudden things just float around for you. Unless you're a snake. I literally gave the snake permanent mage hand.
Oh,
So they literally just can always move things around with their mage hand, since they have no hands.
wow, there was a show that I watched with my kids, a movie, and they're all like the characters were all owls. And they had like a little bit of like I think they had a little bit of clothing, but they had these like talon things, these weapons that they would attach to their claws, which is kind of made me think about that. Like, do you have a lot of? Is there special gear that you came up
There is
with
special
them?
gear. Um, so yeah, like you have to think a smith would basically like, all right, well, let's see, let's figure out how to take a dagger, strap it to your arm, maybe you run your arm through it like almost like it's a shield. So yeah, there are definitely things like that. um
And I guess like technically, familiars aren't really. They're not really animals. They're not really beasts. They're like fey.
well, they are beasts. I mean, in previous editions they were magical beasts.
Yeah,
In this, they're just beasts. Now they do have that spirit type,
yeah.
and that plays a big role in Unfamiliar. Is what is your spirit type? Are you a fiend, fey, or celestial spirit? And that will inform possibly your class abilities depending on which path you go down. It certainly gives you some extra character abilities that are helping to put you on the same par with the standard races as well.
So you've kind of been like you mentioned you circulated these in some of the groups that you belong to.
Mhm.
Is there currently a fan favorite?
People seem to be drawn to ferrets, I think. I don't know. I don't know if they want to play or they're just so enamored with seeing one.
Yeah.
Um, my I expect a lot of people are going to be playing cats because they are cat people. Maybe they just want to show other players the same disdain that their own cats show them. I don't know, but I think I could imagine a lot of cats. But I'm also expanded them too. So like instead of like ferrets are one of the options in the book, but like ferrets are in this class of creatures called mustelids, which includes weasels, minks, martins, all those things. So they would all be under there. But then also badgers and otters. They're also in that same category. So you can play all of those different things. So badgers and the river otters are different from the weasel category. And instead of rats, it's rodents. So you got the rat, you got the squirrel, another one.
Is that a turtle with like a cannon?
Cannon. Which one,
Yeah,
which image are you looking at?
I'm looking at the feet image.
Oh no, he's that's his arm. No,
Okay,
he's
he's got his
blasting
arm
out a
raised up.
spell.
Okay, I see it
He's
now.
blasting out a spell. Yeah.
Nice. I love the frilled dragon or the frilled lizard.
Hmm.
For a brief time as a kid, I wanted to own one of those.
Was it when Jurassic Park came out?
Nah, I think it was prior to that. Like, I don't know. My dad had actually he used to breed reptiles and
Hmm.
always had like a bunch of them. Um, and I just always like those, and the fact they can run across water, and
Yeah, yeah.
the frill itself is pretty cool. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't
Although
make
the
sure to
fact,
include that. I didn't make sure they include the running across the water thing.
yeah, do they squirt blood out of their eyes?
I haven't done the page for the lizards yet.
Yeah,
Um, it takes me a couple days for each of the races because I do tons of research. Like I'm watching National Geographic videos. I want to know everything that these creatures can do because I need to, boost them up, right?
yeah.
Because if you look at just their basic description, it's like, well, they got 4 hit points and they can do 1 point of damage. And they maybe have dark vision. That's it. It's like all they have. So I'm like, I gotta find everything that these creatures can do and find a way to bring that into the game.
So
You know,
Shallender says that ferrets are getting the love because of Kodo and Podo from the Beastmaster.
oh my gosh, that's a throwback.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not so sure about that. That's pretty old.
Wow. Yeah.
I just watched a movie on Netflix called Yin Yang Master, and
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's good.
they had the demons, the ferret demons in there, which were pretty funny.
That was that was a good movie.
That movie totally was
Yeah.
not what I was expecting, to be honest
No,
with you. Like it starts off
no.
somewhat normal, to like what not normal, but what I was expecting, and then quickly like there's all these anamorphic creatures and these creatures from Japanese
Yeah, it's like
mythology.
there's something about Chinese culture and Korean culture for that matter. I don't get because
Yeah,
like I'm so far removed from it. It's like I watch these movies and I watch a lot of them and I'm like I get to the end and I'm like, what happened? What? I'm so
yeah.
confused. Like I don't understand the like their understanding of demons and the spirit realm and something
Yeah, well,
like
it's vastly different than the Western approach,
yeah. Oh yeah,
but it's
definitely.
also refreshing too to just get a different take.
Right. Yeah. I still feel like I'm missing something though.
Well, I imagine that's like anyone who comes to something new and there's all that, all that lore behind it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the Kappa demons, especially when they revealed like something, like I won't say it because people want to watch it and they haven't seen it yet. But when they do the one thing, I was like, oh, that is so cool. Um,
Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
yeah, I imagine. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
We
so
can
that
watch
yeah,
that.
that was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's good. It was very inspiring.
There you go. You could call it. You could chalk that up as research.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely do a lot of like yesterday I was researching minks. Um actually for a different book, but so I'm actually writing a novel to go along with this unfamiliar thing. And so I've started writing an actual novel as well.
Oh, nice.
And the star of this novel is a mink. And I'm like, I'm gonna know everything there is to know about minks so that I can write it accurately. But I have to do that for all of them, you know?
You definitely have a lot of plates spinning.
Not really. All my plates overlap.
Yeah,
The novel thing that was I was doing that yesterday. I'm like, I'm taking the day off.
yeah.
That was me taking the day off. Taking the day off was
Writing the
doing
novel.
something creative,
Yeah,
uh, just because I want to. But
nice.
yeah, no, I don't have that much going on. I mean, I teach just a couple hours a day online and teaching art classes. And then I write and illustrate these books, maybe do a little marketing. It's not that bad. I just do one project at a time primarily.
Do you teach one particular age group or whoever wants to learn to draw?
Well, I teach specifically 8 to 13-year-olds on outschool.com.
Okay,
So I teach how to draw cats, how to draw dogs, and then cartooning, and then just like general, just drawing for fun kind of stuff.
nice. So the groups that you're playing in, you say you game twice a week. Are you a player or a GM?
I'm a player. I cannot GM while I'm working on a book project
Yeah,
because if I'm GMing, I put that same amount of time and effort into my GMing. Like I write a lot. I write a lot so that the players can feel like they have agency and they can move around. Um, and if they don't follow one of my plot lines, that's fine. I've written others, and
I definitely I believe in the shotgun approach.
mhm.
I just like fill double barrel, fill up with as many plots as possible, and then launch them and see what they gravitate towards.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have one central plot, some the big bad, um, that is affecting everything that they do. So like it's having an impact on the world that they are living in. So that will move along and whatever they do, they will find opportunities to affect that plot, because it's what everyone's worried about. But
What
other than
characters
that,
are
I
you
want
playing
them
now?
to have fun. Huh?
What characters are you playing now?
Uh, in my Zoom one, I am playing Velma from Scooby Doo.
Okay.
We are all gnomes, and we are all characters from Scooby Doo. So she's a wizard. And in my live action one, I'm playing Prin Cragsmere, who is a pretty warlock sorceress, both of which are linked to the unicorn. And she has a Rainbow Blast instead of Eldritch Blast.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, and she's a noble of Waterdeep who keeps getting into trouble and embarrassing her family.
So, is it D&D all the time, or do you branch out and play other games as well?
No, just D&D. I might play other games, but I don't know anyone that does play any other games. So I
That
mean, in college we tried like White Wolf and other things like that. They never lasted. And it was D&D that's always been the one that sticks around.
that's been kind of like that's been very similar for us. We would play other games, but then we'd always end up coming back to D&D eventually.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've done Mutants and Masterminds, all of the White Wolf games, vampires and werewolves, and the Robotech, Shadowrun. Yeah.
yeah,
And
it
then,
gets a little harder to branch out as we get older. I feel like just because of the time it takes to learn a new game.
yeah, maybe. Um,
We've been pretty fortunate in the sense that we've been able to like grab other GMs that already know those games and be like, hey, how will we, and why don't you run this for us? And then we only have to know enough to basically get started, with a character.
mhm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. I guess if you try a new game, then you are also a salesman. It's like you'll be like, it's like you're joining a multi-level marketing company or something. It's like, hey, let me sell you on this. Like, oh, you think that's great, but let me show you what you're missing out on.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It can feel a little bit like that. But right now we're
yeah.
playing Quest. We just started a campaign using the Quest RPG, and we recently ran a cipher system game on the channel as well. So we try like to mix in a little bit of other stuff as well. Also, I feel like as a designer, it helps to play other games as well,
Hmm.
and see what's out there, and kind of like, for me personally, it just
Hmm.
kind of like keeps things a little bit fresh.
Yeah.
But like I said, we're also really fortunate where it's easy for us to reach out to people in the industry. We know a lot of people, and oftentimes we can get people that are like directly involved with that stuff to run it for us. So
Hmm.
one of the perks.
Yeah. Yeah. I have one of the big reward level on my campaign is I will run a campaign for you and your group.
Nice.
No one's got taken me up on that one. Probably because it's $1,800, but
Yeah, I feel
I'm
like
holding
even on
out
our
hope.
Kickstarter, we definitely threw out some like pie in the sky like tiers that didn't really get taken up on. But really, when you start about talk about parsing out your time, you really have to kind of be a little bit stingy, right? So those
All right.
rewards tend to be a bit more expensive because like time is one of the most valuable things that we have. We
Yeah.
can't get more of it, so
Yeah. The older
it's
you get,
tough.
the less of it you have for some reason.
What are the
Uh,
other D&D projects you've put out?
so I put out Call to Adventure. So this is just backgrounds. That was when 5e first came out. I was like, I love this background mechanic. Like
Yeah.
I always thought, if you remember back to second edition, even maybe third edition too, the secondary skills. Um, so these were like what you did before you were an adventurer.
Yeah.
I always wanted to do more with that. I remember constantly arguing with my DMs. I'm like, no, but like my secondary skills is a forester, so I should be able to like no, that doesn't. There's no. That doesn't do anything. I'm like, well, it should. So I love that they brought that in. I just like there needs to be more, And I understand you can, the PHB just can only be so big. But I'm like, I need some more. I'm making more, and I'm going to share this with the world. And so I made like 40 backgrounds.
Yeah.
And some of them are weird and wonderful, but most of them are mundane because I like that kind of background. To me, and that's why it's called Call to Adventure. It's that classic book that I could read a million of, where you start as the simple peasant boy, right? And you have your great adventure, and you return the hero. And I thought that was missing. Like in medieval times, like 96% of people were subsistence farmers, and yet farmer was not even an option for your background. There's no blacksmith, there's no hunter, so
Yeah, they kind of fall under these larger umbrellas.
Yeah, like
backgrounds are tough. Like rule of thumb, when I look at a background, if I look at the feature and it gives any kind of mechanical benefit, I'm like, oh, this isn't right.
Yeah,
because they should be. And I think of the ones that Wizards have put it, even like they broke that a couple times, but I don't like it. Like I feel like any benefit you garner from the background feature should be like it causes you to role play with an NPC, and then you can kind of like get that benefit. Like you get to stay someplace.
It should have a role playing aspect to it.
Yeah,
definitely.
Where so the urchin one is probably a little bit too good because it lets you move faster, through the cities, and it doesn't really cause the backgrounds should facilitate exploration or role playing pillars, right? But the problem is when it comes to the exploration pillar, all they ever do is make it go away when something addresses it, which makes it kind of worse.
Yeah. So I have like one of the backgrounds is highwayman. All right. So very common back in medieval times. Doesn't show up in 5th edition. The idea, like there's guys that are like, well, I'm just going to stand here and block the road and rob people. So their feature is know a guy, right? So you buy stuff, you got to sell it. Who are you going to sell your stolen goods to? Guys that you could sell it to. That's your feature.
Like that, and that's a great example of a feature, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't automatically do anything for you. It just means you get to take your stuff to someone who may buy it from you.
Right.
And not automatically turn you in.
Yeah.
But they might turn you in anyway. You never know. It could be like a plot twist for sure.
Yeah.
So
and I actually have a prostitute in there as a background. So you could have had a background where you were a prostitute, and their feature is, I forget what it's called, but basically, how to deal with guys with money. And so you get like advantage on insight checks when dealing with powerful men.
The one I was surprised, like there's no like physician. Like we were doing a character build, or like this character should have like been a physician or something, but there is nothing for that, right? And then it's like, well, then we thought about it's like that's because the medicine skill really doesn't do anything.
It doesn't.
It's like really doesn't. You can. It's just kind of implied, right? Like it makes you better at stabilizing somebody. But like that's it, right?
There's always someone to do spare the dying. Not only that, people can stabilize themselves in this edition. You know,
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
well, sort of like we've definitely had our first character death because that didn't happen.
yeah, but it's kind of rare
It is. It is rare.
unless the DM wants to. I mean, it's very easy to kill a character once they're down, but you have to. The DM has to overtly do it, and everyone knows that he's
Yeah.
killing your character, and you're literally watching him
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that came
choose
up
to
this
kill your
weekend.
character.
One of the characters got dropped and they were inside of a inside the mouth of a zombie T-Rex. So the player is like, you're just gonna chew next round, aren't you? And so like the party is like everyone that's going before the zombie T-Rex is trying to figure out how to get that character out of the zombie T-Rex's mouth or to keep the zombie T-Rex from chewing.
Yeah, yeah, that's fun. That's fun. I like that.
So like, because five, I mean, there isn't a lot of like drama moments and tension moments like that in 5e. But also too, like for me, like it always just depends on what the monster is, right? Like
Mhm.
if it's kind of just like a beast or an animalistic type creature, and you go down, more than likely, they're gonna kill you because really they just want to get their meal and go,
Mhm.
and they're just going to more intelligent foes. If you're down, you're not a threat anymore. Probably not.
But
Um,
that's why I made this book, Traveling Encounters, because as a player, I don't like just random encounters where like, oh, you hear something, now you're being attacked by this thing.
yeah,
I'm like, I want there to be a reason and I want there to be options, So I've in this book, which you can learn more about this on the Kickstarter, but it's just a bunch of spreads, and each of these spreads is a self-contained little adventure. It's a little side encounter, and it even has like you read this to the players. Here's what you do for different CRs. Here's the stats of the whatever you're going to go up against. Here's options. Here's things your characters might do. Here's exactly what you do round by round as the DM. And then there's twists, like surprises, things that happen. So like 2 or 3 rounds in, now this is going on. So it's not just
yeah.
a constant just chop 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 until the end. No, now there's something else that's happening, and you have alternative goals. And yeah, that's what I like. But that's not easy to do like on the fly.
No, it is definitely a lot more difficult to make dynamic encounters on the fly.
Yeah, so
Uh,
that book was very popular, and it's actually, we sold a lot of these on the new Kickstarter for Unfamiliar. A lot of people have gotten Traveling Encounters along with it.
I
But I
mean,
hear back from DMs all the time. People love that book, and the groups love it too, because there's always something that you can grab to throw in when your characters are in between point A and point B, that just makes for a nice addition to that Nights of Gaming.
yeah, it's good filler, right? Like
Yeah,
in a meaningful way. That's
yeah,
actually what our first project was out of box encounters. Is just 55 encounters. Just drop them in. Most of them fit in a lot of variety of different settings. And
hmm
the toughest part was like getting people to understand and realize they're not 55 fights. It's 55
hmm
instances of something happening. It could
yeah,
be a fight, maybe, but also, it could just be role playing. It could be discovery and exploration. But,
yeah.
like you said, something that's a little more dynamic or interesting that, isn't just like a random, wolves attack you
I
because you're
got
in the
one in
woods.
there where it's literally an avalanche.
Yeah.
Characters are moving. There's an avalanche, and here's how you apply your roles and things and different outcomes, to resolve what happens to the characters in this avalanche, so they can affect survival of that happening. It's just
You're dropping the
too much.
avalanches before it was cool with Rime of the Frost Maiden.
Yeah, exactly. um there's another one where like they're staying at an inn. A tornado hits. The inn is being torn apart while you're
Yeah,
in it. And how do you survive that?
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, I know.
So, so you've been with your one group for a very long time. What's the
Mhm.
highest level of campaign you guys have played up to?
um we had one game that went up into godhood. um I feel like all campaigns end in godhood. um because there's no more powerful
Yeah, yeah.
NPCs in the world. um so that was interesting. Like you're literally gods. You're like, I don't know, 20 something level. That was a third edition game. um my character was the god of the forge. um One of the other players was a god of skiing and uh something else.
Our so like our group kind of like is an extension of the group that I started when like I think my youngest brother Ryan was in high school or junior high, and no, he's probably high school, and then Ted was like a senior in high school, and then just like went into college from there, and like that group in some kind of incarnation has been going, and like it wasn't until after 5e that we started playing and took a campaign from level 1 all the way to 20. And it only took us like 20 years to make that happen. Like the running joke used to be like, if we wanted to play a campaign that was 15th level, we had to start at 13th.
Yeah,
Keeping
yeah,
games going. Even though we've kept a group going for a long time, we've been terrible at keeping games going.
yeah. Life happens, or you're just like, I don't really want to play this character anymore. I have a different idea for a character. And like you can start them at whatever the party level is at, or I really want to start them at first level though, and watch them grow. My live group is playing Dungeon of the Mad Mage now.
Yeah.
So I am curious to see how that goes. He says it's going to take us all the way up to 20th level. I don't know. We're 5th level right now, so got
Got
a
a
ways
little
to
ways
go.
to go. Well, that's just it too. Like all those games start off with the best intentions, and then like you said, something in life comes up. The DM gets bored or burned out, and then someone will take over and be like, I have an idea for a game. So we'll be like, all right, we'll go back to this, but we never get back to this because either like
Mhm.
the GM will come up with another idea or someone else will take over or whatever.
Yeah, he does not complain. So this is my church group, and the GM was in an improv group before the pandemic. And it shows. So
Yeah.
like you can really role play, and like you feel like the NPCs are actual people and not just like, I'm sorry, you're asking for something that isn't in my dialogue box.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a really nice touch. So I don't know, maybe he can take us all the way to 20th level. We'll see. Fingers crossed.
In the meantime, I'm sure you'll have fun, with the adventures you get to play anyway.
Yeah.
Do
Oh
you
yeah.
prefer pre-written stuff like official content or homebrew?
I no. I mean, I haven't. Um I mean, when I run, I definitely like doing my own thing.
Yeah,
That's
same.
that's my thrill, right? I mean, that's what I get out of it as a DM, is to write and be creative with the world and the NPCs. If I don't have that, I don't know what I don't have a creative outlet then. Um, but even as a player, I've never really liked playing in modules because I've always felt very limited. like I said, we just finished Dragon Heist, and I felt like I had tons of options. So I haven't read the module, but he ran it in such a way that I felt like I had real agency and could really affect things. So, maybe people have just been doing modules wrong all these years. And
It's always about the group and the GM, right? I think for the most part. Um, so many GMs take the modules and make them their own, and really I feel like a really good GM could run a pre-written adventure and you won't even know that it's pre-written. And I've also seen GMs who can take it and have run the same adventures for the same group, and it's like been different for them every time. To me,
hmm,
I don't like pre-written adventures because I feel it's a lot more work than me making my own stuff up. And I also do, like you said, enjoy the creative outlet of it as well.
hmm,
Because,
yeah,
I would want to change it and customize it and tailor it to the players.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
I've also been in games where it is pre-written stuff, and the GM did a fantastic job with it.
yeah. I guess it depends. For me, like if the players interact in a way that wasn't scripted, I don't know what to do. I have to go and like, I'm going to break this module if I just wing it,
Yeah,
you know. But if it's my own thing, I understand all the motivations and all the stories and things going on behind the scenes, and I can sandbox it. I can go with the flow and adapt. So I
I
definitely feel more
haven't
comfortable doing it that way.
I haven't even ran enough pre-written stuff to even weigh in on it from that aspect. Is whether what would happen if I had to then start ad-libbing and winging it from wherever, because I've never really run anything pre-written that's been more than like maybe the adventure that came in in the core book for it,
Hmm,
right? So like those are really tend to be really short, so they're easy to like fold
hmm.
into a session, so there isn't really a lot of room for it to go off the rails.
Well, that's another thing. Unfamiliar. I'm going to put out a module, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So I'm paying $500 to whoever can write a module for Unfamiliar. So people have been sending me little synopses, um, and in next week sometime, I think I'm going to be choosing one person to work with to make a one of those introductory, like, oh, now you're an unfamiliar.
Now you're not familiar. What do you do?
Here's your starting
Yeah.
module.
So
I'm
we're
looking forward
just
to
past
that.
the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out?
I don't know. I had a great time. This was really fun.
Cool.
Good
Appreciate you coming on,
conversation.
Jerry. As always, folks, links are in the description. Go click away. Go check out Unfamiliar. I think it's a really cool and fun premise. And until next time, stay nerdy.
Thanks, Dave.